Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we have a video covering a list that I've been brewing for a while now on the Kabalite Cartel. So the Kabalite Cartel is one of the strongest detachments in the Codex. I've been kind of raving about it the last couple videos, especially when we talked about Lady Malice. So I'm a little bit late with this video, but I'm glad I am because I was able to kind of make some tweaks to the list in ways that I think it didn't really work before. So I've tried this list, iterations of it several times now, and I'm to the point where I feel like this is really probably one of the best builds in the Drukhari Codex that I've come up with so far, at least functionally speaking. So without further ado, let us go ahead and dive right in. So starting at our epic hero selection, we are going to have 3 epic heroes in the army. We're going to have Drazar, Lady Malice, and Lilith. Now, Drazar is really good with Incubi in this detachment because he gives them +1 to wound, but not only that, he's actually he's actually a blender himself. He does a lot of damage. He has dev wounds based on his weapon, so he gets dev wounds against everything versus Incubi, who only get dev wounds against infantry targets. So he can go up to, let's say, a knight, and he can do some significant damage to that, big vehicle. He also has an ability to basically, get reroll hits and wounds against something below half strength. So he's really just churning out damage against wounded targets. So for 85 points, I think he's an absolute steal in this list. Now, a lot of people might think that a regular old Archon might be the better choice for this army, but I would actually argue that Drazar, being a Blades for Hire unit himself and getting the benefit of sustained hits against infantry or lethal hits against, vehicles and monsters, actually makes him better in close combat than your standard Archon. So I chose to use Drazar in this list. You could just swap out for an Archon, but I do feel like Drazar is really good. Lady Malice is the next hero, and we're including her in the list because she is honestly one of the best characters. I know some people don't really like her, don't really think she's worth the extra 20 points over an Archon, but the ability to redeploy things before the game starts is really powerful. So we take her specifically in this list because not only does she benefit from the Cabal, detachment rule, but she also allows mandrakes to become much more influential over the battle. And mandrakes are Blades for Hire units, so they're getting the bonuses of the detachments and stratagems as well. Lilith is next. So Lilith doesn't have any benefit from the detachment or the strats, but she's just good, right? She has fights first. Now, we're not going to take her with witches. Now, some people might look at that and say, well, that's a mistake. You should be taking her with a squad of 10 witches. But in my honest opinion, I have not enjoyed using her with witches in the Kabalite Cartel, and there's a reason for it. I believe she does not support the playstyle of the Kabalite Cartel when she's with a big squad of witches, or even a small squad of witches. I actually think that Lilith is best used as a heroic intervention piece for fights first. And because she has precision, she's really good at killing characters who can buff targets, right? Who buff their units and provide a kind of a, presence, a melee presence for you to deal with. So what do I mean by this? Well, Space Marine captains, for example, right? Being able to hop in there with Lilith, take out the captain, take out their once per game +3 attacks and dev wounds ability, and just make it so that they can't use free strats on their unit is really powerful for 85 points. And this can allow you to easily deal with whatever they bring. They bring Blade Guard, then it's like, okay, I'm going to kill your captain, eliminate him. Maybe, some of the wounds spill over to your Blade Guard. Maybe I kill a couple Blade Guard along the way. Your attacks aren't going to be enough back to kill both Lilith and whatever squad you charged into, most likely. Unless you're, using Marnius Calgar or some really expensive Death Star. But even then, Lilith is really good at just mopping up small units that want to come in and charge, trading units. She's really good at doing that. So I put her in this list basically just for that. And also, she's a character that can hop into Venom, which is useful for Lady Malice being able to start outside of a Venom and then swapping Lilith and Lady Malice back and forth as needed. Next, for our regular characters, we just have a single Archon. Now, again, this might feel like not the right decision, right? Some people will argue with me about this, but this is what I have found using the list. Most armies in 40K, you're either going to be fighting an uphill battle against a bunch of vehicles or a bunch of infantry. There are combined arms lists, but we don't really need the help in a combined arms list dealing with vehicles usually because they're in hiding. So most of the game, they're just going to be hiding behind terrain, waiting for the right moment to pop out. Guess what? Kabalite Cartel doesn't allow them a moment to pop out, right? So oftentimes, our scourges are enough to basically incentivize, or decentivize, I should say, the big vehicles from your opponent's list from popping their heads up, right? Therefore, I don't think you really need to select the, contract to kill vehicles. That's not something that you really need. It's useful for armies that are like, Monster Mash Nids or something like that. But if you're going up against Monster Mash Nids, we have tools for that, right? We have tools for that. And it's easy enough to kill their infantry units to where we can kill an infantry unit and then pick a new target turn 2 when your Archon does come in on the battlefield. Or turn 3, excuse me. It would be turn 3, right? So turn 3 is usually when the monsters kind of get to the midfield anyway, and they're able to exert pressure on the board. By that time, you should be able to rapid ingress your Archon in, turn 2, turn 3, and be in a position to use that stratagem to pick a new contract, right? I think it's called, numerous enemies, or enemies without number, I think is what it is. So that's why I only have one Archon in the list. Now, he does have the Webway All. He is also the Warlord. Now, he is protected in reserve, so we can make sure that we don't really have to worry about that too much. And we're going to pick an infantry target that's not going to be immediately killed, right? We're not going to just want to immediately kill it while he's in reserve. So that is something we have to kind of play around a little bit, right? But again, because you can rapid ingress for free and you can rapid ingress during your opponent's turn, it's going to be kind of turn 2, turn 3-ish that you're going to be selecting that new target anyway. So if you're going against a Monster Mash Nids list, honestly, the best target is just a squad of Termagants that are like second wave Termagants, right? Your opponent hasn't brought them in yet. They're kind of, behind some terrain. They're getting ready to replace a squad of Termagants that just died. That's the squad you want to target, and you should have enough firepower in your army to deal with that unit at that time. Speaking of our own battle line, we have Kabalite Warriors. We do have a squad of 10 of these, and here's the other thing, right? There's going to be moments where maybe we don't need to actually use the web whale. Maybe we want to just deploy the Archon and his Incubi on the board. That's totally fine, right? So there are going to be moments like that if, for whatever reason, your opponent's list can give your contract, detachment bonus a little bit of an issue. You can always just deploy them on the board. Kabalite Warriors are there to sit on your home objective, and basically that's it, right? We might use a Venom to split them up and then do a little bit of a transport swap, which I'm going to show you guys on TTS how to do that really quick so that it's not a big issue, but we're going to be using them for sticky objectives. I find that 115 points for these guys is fine. The reason why I got rid of the infiltrator, basically the informant network enhancement, is because I didn't want to invest 300 plus points in Kabalite Warriors. They are good, don't get me wrong, they are good, but they die super easily. There's no strat that protects them really except for Lone Op, and they're kind of a medium range infantry unit. They do have some long range weapons, but they're a little bit iffy. They hit on 4s. You know, the Dark Lance hits on 4s, the Splinter Cannon hits on 4s. They're a good unit for sticky objectives, but I don't know. I didn't like it when I had 2 units of these guys in my army, and I felt like I could do more with other stuff in this detachment. So only 1 squad of them, but still 1 squad is still pretty good. Now, for the rest of the list, we have 10 incubi. They're going to obviously go with the Archon here, with the Webway All. Again, you don't need to use the Webway All, but it is an option. And it's going to be used in a vast majority of cases with this unit, so you can rapid ingress to a really, really advantageous spot on the battlefield. We have 2 squads of 5 incubi. One's going to go with Drazar, one's going to go with Lady Malice. Lady Malice and Drazar both just absolutely pump the damage on incubi to extreme levels, especially in this detachment. So we have 2 squads of those. Now we're going Mandrake heavy. We're going 10 Mandrakes, and then we're going 2 squads of 5 Mandrakes. Now the 10-man unit of Mandrakes is for stratagem use. You know, being able to crit on 5s with sustained hits against infantry, and then also proc dev wounds as well with ignores cover and AP -1 and all that stuff is really effective for the cost. You're only paying 150 points for this unit. They can absolutely devastate a unit at 18 inches and then be 18 inches away from a lot of other stuff in your opponent's army and actually survive, right? So this is a really powerful unit that you can use pain tokens on to just, you know, put back in reserve whenever you want. Same thing with these squads of 5. Again, these squads of 5 are more like trading units, and what I found is in this detachment, 5 Mandrakes for 75 points with sustained hits, AP -1 blades that are strength 5 are actually doing some work, and they have dev wounds. So they're actually doing some insane work against enemy infantry, right? Because they get their shooting attack, then they get to charge in and do their damage in combat, right? And with Lady Malice, we can redeploy all of these. So we can get very advantageous positions with these guys and be able to block off our opponent's infiltrators. So you can very easily jail your opponent with good use of Mandrakes and Lady Malice, or if your opponent is kind of unjailable, you can deploy more conservatively and use them for later, for screening, move blocking, and stuff like that. Very good unit. Next up, we have 2 units of Scourges with heavy weapons. So we're going to be going with the Dark Lances on these. Now, honestly, there's an argument for Haywire, but there's a little bit of a anti-synergy with Haywire in this specific list against particularly monsters and vehicles, right? Because lethal hits and dev wounds don't really like each other. However, Dark Lances with sustained hits against infantry I've actually found are pretty decent, especially with rerolls to hit. So, you know, you might not get that many extra attacks, but if you have 2 units firing at a heavy infantry target, you're getting a couple extra attacks. That's a couple more potential kills on things like Terminators or, you know, Blade Guard vets or whatever, right? So these Scourges with heavy weapons are actually pretty decent with just sustained hits against infantry and mounted. And then when you go to vehicles, Dark Lances are just good, right? They're just good against pretty much any vehicle target. They're not the best, but in this particular detachment, they're actually really, really effective. Not only because they're able to penetrate vehicle armor, but we have a synergy, which is very good, which is the Scourges with Shard Carbine. So if you need to punch the armor of a big vehicle that is coming in the midfield, look no further than the Scourges with Shard Carbines. So this might seem a little bit weird, but it's essentially ignores cover if you're giving an extra AP to whatever hits that big vehicle. So you hit this with Scourges, with Shard Carbines, you subtract their armor, and then, of course, you hit them with 8 Dark Lances. 8 Dark Lances with rerolls to hit are probably going to be enough to kill. If it's not, you can always, you know, get Drazar up there with some Incubi to finish it off, which is also really good, right? If you really need a vehicle target to be killed, you have Bring It Down or something like that, or they're on an objective point, that's a good way to do it. I found that 2 Scourges with heavy weapons are usually enough to get the job done as well. Next up, for our monsters, we have the Chronos and the Talos. We have 1 Chronos just meant to basically recycle pain tokens in the backfield with our Scourges, you know, just to get some extra resources for us. A single Chronos for 55 points, really good. We don't have the Spirit Vortex on it, but it did get buffed in its other areas. So I feel like it's kind of like the same thing, basically, as it was in the Index. I love Little Chrono. I always have. He's really cute, little tentacle guy. He always does its job. I've never had a Chronos not do what I expect it to do in a game, and it continues to do well for me. So I do have a single Chronos in the list. Now, I took a little bit of a measured risk with the Talos, and I have to say, I actually found its performance good. Now, here's why there's only one of them, and it seems like a weird detachment to have a Talos in. But this army specifically lacks something that can go onto the expansion early and survive a hit from specifically assault intercessors. And I know that seems very weird. It's like a specific counter, but basically every Space Marine army I ever go into has a squad of either, assault intercessors or jump pack assault intercessors. They have some sort of jump infantry or assault infantry that wants to assault my expansion objective. And the Talos is a great counter to this, especially the new Talos, because they're probably not going to kill it. And if they do kill it, we have Fight on Death. And what Fight on Death can do for us with twin macro scalpels is it can make sure that we kill most of that Marine unit. So whatever it is that's going to clean it up is going to be able to do so much easier. We gave it a twin Haywire blaster just because, Haywires are good to get, finishing off vehicles and stuff like that. So if we need to, like let's say our 8 Dark Lances don't do the job on a vehicle, it has like 2 wounds left. Yes, guys, this does happen quite frequently in Warhammer. Your opponent rolls a bunch of 4-up saves. You can't do anything about it, Like I've had opponents literally roll 6 dice and roll 6 4-ups on me. I've had them roll 5 out of 6 4-ups. I've had people roll 20 dice and not a single one in the whole, batch. So it can happen. It can happen. Having said that, the Talos can finish off those pretty easily because they don't get to roll dice against it, right? Because it's Haywire. So Talos, not the best unit in the Codex, but something to plug a little bit of a gap in the list. So I've actually found that it was pretty good. My opponent did charge 10 assault intercessors into an objective that had some incubi in it, and my Talos was able to clean up quite a bit of them, and they just had no answer to it. They needed 5s to wound. It had a 3+, which went to a 4+ against their little, chain swords or whatever that have AP -1. And then I had my Feel No Pain on top of that, and it just went to town and basically helped me secure my objective against a force that was much more expensive than it. So Talos has earned a place in this list for me just for that specific purpose. But I don't feel like it's necessary to have 2 of them in the list because, of course, we have other tools as well that we can deal with, Space Marines basically with, right? We have a bunch of incubi and they're pretty good at it as well. Next up for our vehicles, we do have 2 Ravagers with disintegrator cannons. I felt like having 2 of these around was a big plus because this list, this list basically has no good ranged anti-infantry. Now you might be thinking, oh, but Proxy Hammer, what about Kabalite Warriors? Kabalite Warriors do not do the job. Unfortunately, they're good damage. They're good for what they are, guys, but they're not super effective at killing Marines. And oftentimes they just pepper the Marines. They maybe kill maybe they kill 3 out of 5, but that's not good enough to secure an objective, right? That's not good enough to kill something off an objective so that you don't have to cede primary points to your opponent. So these Ravagers really help out with that. They have sustained hits 1 against infantry. They are Cabal. And also, they have reroll all hits if the target is at full strength. So 1 Ravager basically pops out, shoots 9 shots down range, sustained hits 1, rerolling all hits. You're going to get a lot of hits. You're wounding on 3s after that. You're going to get a significant amount of those. Your opponent's taking saves at -3. They're probably not getting cover unless they're actually in cover. And if they are in cover, again, we have our Scourge with Shard Carbine to finish them off, right? So that combo is really powerful. Now, I do have 2 of these. Now, one of them might actually be in reserve, or you could just have it on the board. Doesn't really matter, but This is essentially because you want to be able to cover as many line of sight lanes as possible, and sometimes it's not possible to have one Ravager be in a perfect position to cover the whole, every single line of sight lane that you could possibly have. So having two Ravagers in the list allows for this and allows for a little bit more shooting flexibility on enemy objectives. Lastly, we have two Venoms, standard Venoms. Again, one's carrying is going to carry Drazar and the 5 Incubi, and then Lady Malice and the 5 Incubi. But before that, we're going to, kind of have them. It's kind of weird, but we're going to have them swap with Lilith, right? So Lilith is going to start in the transport, so Lady Malice can use her redeployment ability, and then we're going to swap out turn one so that we can, obviously play the game as it's intended. So that's the list. And I've actually found that this list is very strong. It's, how do I put this? It is very denial based and it's very hard hitting. Like, I could have my units pretty much wherever I want because I have all these mandrakes. I have scourges in reserve as well. I have these, these 10 incubi usually in reserve with the webway all. My opponent has to play almost super, super safe to be able to stop me from coming in wherever I want and just overtaking the game. At the same time, if my opponent plays safe, it kind of plays into my hands a little bit because I have really good shooting, right? I have really good shooting with these scourges. I could take my time. I could whittle my opponent down. If my opponent wants to put something out there to score, secure no man's land, for example, right? Wants to put stuff on the middle. I have things in this list that can absolutely dump on whatever that is, right? If my opponent overcommits to one objective, I can bring down the hammer on them with units that are much cheaper. 10 Incubi is 180 points plus an Archon 105. That brings it up to 205. That's a 300 point unit that can kill probably, honestly, pretty easily can kill 6 Blade Guard vets with a captain and a lieutenant, or 6 Blade Guard vets with, good old Marnius Calgar. It can happen. I can't remember if he doesn't have fights first, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, I've looked at his rules a couple times. I don't think he has it, unless I'm just going crazy here. But that unit can do some significant damage. If he does have fights first and he's just out there in the middle of the battlefield, we have twin Ravagers that can just absolutely devastate that unit. We have Scourges with Dark Lances, which can poke him, right, with sustained hits. Mandrakes are really good at taking out that unit as well because they have dev wounds. So we just have a bunch of stuff that can absolutely destroy something that goes in the middle of the battlefield. So we can cripple our opponent over time. At the same time, our opponent has to play safe. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? So we're putting our opponent in a position where they have to play safe and have to play careful, but at the same time, they can't sacrifice too much because we have a game plan that's going to allow us to whittle our opponent down and then crush them in the late stages of the game. Because we have all these mandrakes, because we have these scourges, they're going to be alive for the most of the game. Now, the only thing that's really concerning is a little bit of indirect. Like, if your opponent goes heavy into indirect fire, mandrakes are safe, which is great. But what's not going to be safe is things like the Venoms, right? Unfortunately, Venoms, they're not very good at surviving indirect fire. They do have stealth, but if your opponent has a couple basilisks or something, like a couple turns and your Venoms are going to be down. So the best thing to do with it, with these in these cases, is just kind of run them up, try to score objectives with them, Drazar and Lady Malice, try to get as much work done with them and just kind of ignore the indirect fire. Yeah, if a Basilisk shoots a Venom or whatever, or Whirlwind shoots a Venom, it's probably going to take 4 damage on average. It might die, but that's okay, right? Because at the end of the day, they're spending a lot of resources on indirect. Whirlwinds are 190 points. I had a couple people telling me about Whirlwinds over the past couple weeks, and I just think they suck. Played a Sisters of Battle person, or God, played against Sisters of Battle the other day in kind of a 2v2 situation where you know, they had an Exorcist tank, and my buddy and me were playing Eldar, and I think he ended up doing 6 damage or something like that to a fire prism, and then it died. You know, it's just, it's not that good. Also, he was rolling fantastic with it that turn. You know, fantastic roll. He hit mostly everything, and then he wounded mostly everything, and then my buddy failed a bunch of saves, and it only took 6 damage. So, you know, I mean, best case scenario, you half shot a fire prism, but I mean, what else, right? So indirect fire, not very good against this army, especially with our lone op stratagem, right? So, you know, I mean, we can survive it. Ravagers can survive indirect fire. We have, you know, mandrakes are lone op themselves. Scourges can be targeted with the lone op so that, you know, your opponent just can't kill all your scourges turn one. You can also use range to help your scourges out because most indirect fire weapons are 36 inches, which can outrange. You could, you know, put them in the corners of the battlefield and you can outrange them pretty easily. So there's ways around indirect fire, is my point. Okay, this is the list. We're going to jump onto Tabletop Simulator in just a second, and I'm going to show you some of the ways in which you can deploy these guys and make it really hard for your opponent to deal with this type of list. All right, I'll see you there in just a second. Alrighty, welcome to our Tabletop Simulator example where we have the army setup and basically how to run this list for maximum efficiency on the battlefield. So we have our army right here. As you can see, it's not super large. We do have a lot of more expensive Dark Eldar units, Drakar units, Incubi, right? Characters like Drazar, Lilith, Lady Malice. We have our little Talos and Kronos here. We do have a lot of Mandrakes as well. They are very affordable units, but they're not the cheapest units in the book, right? We're not going super witch heavy or super Kabalite heavy. So, having said that, we still have a lot of activations on the battlefield. And this is exactly how we're going to set them up. So this is a deployment we've seen a few times before. It's quickly become a favorite of mine to show just because it is one of the harder ones for players to understand how to deploy in, but I have actually found that it is one of the most interesting if you have a lot of stuff that you can move around the battlefield, like mandrakes and, you know, uppy downy type units or reserve type units and stuff like that. So in this particular setup, we have our mandrakes. Now we have 2 squads of mandrakes here, one guarding our expansion objective from infiltrators. That should probably be deployed first or second, but you're going to probably want to deploy a second unit back here as well. And remember, everything could be possibly redeployed. So it's not like, you know, you're going to lose that unit like you would in other detachments or other armies without Lady Malice, right? So we have our mandrakes set up out here and here. Chances are if they have infiltrators, they're going to want to put them somewhere like on maybe your, even on your expansion. But it's going to be a little dangerous for them to do that because we have a lot to take out their stuff with, right? Which is why we have the Talos over here. Talos, 80-point model that can very easily deal with things like scouts or, you know, other types of infiltrators. Up here, we have our squad of 10 mandrakes, and I've talked about this before, especially when using Lady Malice. But you essentially deploy your mandrakes like this, kind of bait your opponent into, you know, putting some more stuff over here to try to deal with the mandrakes. And, you know, they look at something like this and they're like, oh my God, you're on the objective. That's great. I can score things like, you know, extend enemy battle lines or storm hostile objective or whatever it is, right? And then you just whisk them away somewhere else on the board. You can even put them in reserve as well. So don't forget that, right? Like Lady Malice's ability allows you to redeploy, or you can put them back in reserve. Same thing over here with these 2 squads of mandrakes, and this is exactly what we're going to redeploy is just the mandrakes. We don't need to redeploy anything else. So we have 1 Ravager over here. Now the only thing that can threaten this Ravager is down this line right here. If you're going against a fast opponent though, it is really good idea to bait out some range attacks because you do have that ability that gives you 18-inch lone op, right? You do have I think it's called Devious Trickery or something like that. Whatever it is, I just call it 18-inch loan op stratagem, but I'll probably learn the names more as I just look at the codex more. But basically, if something wants to go from here to here, right? Very few units can do it, but Dark Eldar units can, or Eldar units, and they want to attack you from this distance, want to go like this, you can just loan op yourself. So this is a really safe position, even though there is direct line of sight from this side to this side, right? So here we're set up. This gives us a little more room as well. And we're ready. We're ready to play the game. If they have infiltrators that come down right here and we have to deploy our mandrakes further back, that's totally fine. A very simple tactic to deal with infiltrators in this list is just simply put a squad right outside the objective. Let them come to the objective, right? If they charge you, like if they charge your mandrakes way over here, which by the way, mandrakes have loan op, so we don't need to care about them getting shot at really. If your opponent goes off this objective to try to, charge them and kill them, they're not typically going to be close enough to consolidate back onto, right? We also do have a Talos right here, which can easily heroic intervene on the first turn, right? So if your opponent really wants to go that deep for mandrakes, they're going to get punished for it. At the same time, if we go first and we kind of redeploy our mandrakes all back here, our squad of 5, we can simply at the, beginning of our movement phase, we could just move these guys right up to the objective, tow the objective a little bit, and then we can advance our Talos up to here so that we can heroically intervene with it if we need to, right? And I've actually found that just the single Talos solves a lot of problems that squishy units like mandrakes have in the early stages of the game when trying to get onto our expansion. We have our Cobbs back here, and they're just there to chill, basically. We're going to do our little swap technique. We're going to, throw Lilith out of this transport. Lady Malice and her Incubi are going to come back into the transport on our first turn so that, we have a Venom for that. We can move our, Talos into position. Maybe we get to here with our advance roll. That's 9 inches. Boink, right? So it's in range to, heroically intervene if we need to. That's really the only important factor here, which it will be most definitely. And we can move our Venom to here, right? This is the Venom that has Lady Malice in it. Well, that's, you guys get the idea. It's going to be right along those lines there. We'll just put it here for now. And from here, Lilith can move up to this area. Now, why is this area important? Well, this is kind of a central part of the battlefield. Right here, she's very protected from enemy shooting, but if something wants to charge it, it's going to be difficult because she has fights first, right? So we're going to eventually move her. She'll be right here at first, but then she'll move into this position on like turn 2, right? And this will make it hard for your opponent to do much about it. If they bring in a lot of stuff here, well, then we can just let her die because she's 85 points. She's not that expensive, right? We can kill a character with her precision attacks, and then we can just basically, say, all right, well, whatever character you had in that unit is now dead. You're not getting any bonuses or buffs or anything like that. Then we can come out with these Ravagers and just absolutely, destroy anything that they have. Alternatively, right, we do have Drazar and 5 Incubi. You could just hop out, kill them, hop back in. So, in a lot of scenarios here, the fact that we have a Venom that can just rinse and repeat over and over again is going to allow us to be much more defensive and much more conservative with our activations. We get more activations than our opponent. We're going to outtrade them over the course of the game, and eventually, because we have so much mobility in our mandrakes and everything else, we're going to outscore them as well. Remember, our opponent has to be very careful about where they move their models. They have to be very careful about line of sight lanes because we have Ravagers, we have long range shooting, as well as close combat. So we have a lot that our opponent has to worry about, which is going to make it really hard for them to really, be able to deal with us effectively. And yeah, that's basically it. So the other thing, by the way, let's say, for example, and I was saying this earlier in the list building, but I'll go over this really quick. Let's say our opponent brings out Yeah, let's just load this whole guard list, right? So, say our opponent like brings out a big vehicle, right? Like a Lehman Russ Demolisher or something like that, a tank commander or something. And they just do this kind of thing, right? They just kind of tow the objective with their last cannon, which is a very common thing for guard players to do, but they, just come out here. There's nothing that we have to fear from this, right? Because normally a normal Dark Eldar list might say, well, God, I'm going to have to, actually really think about what I have to deal with this, right? Because it has a really good, armor profile. It's toughness 11. It's a 2+ save. It has smoke. I might not be able to kill it effectively. But the thing is that we have an army that really deals with this kind of thing very well. So we have a couple of options that we can kind of do here. First of all, and I actually think this might be the funniest thing, is we have our scourges, right? And now scourges are really, really good. They just come out here, they draw a bead on it, right? We have our 2 scourge squads. We can have this squad as well, draw a bead right here, fire 8 dark lances into this thing. Now, it could get smoke, that is true, but 8 dark lances, re-rolling hits with, potentially lethal hits should be enough to kill this thing. If for whatever reason it's not, later in the game, this is why we have this Talos here, right? Maybe we put it right here on turn 2, and this is a turn 3 move, and it's right here. Well, we're in a position now where we can just finish it off with a little tiny bit of haywire, right? The Talos is a little bit better at dealing with tanks now because it has a better ballistic skill. So even though its ability got nerfed, and it's not getting rerolls to hit anymore, it did get better ballistic skill to kind of make up for it a little bit. So you're still hitting on 4s here because it's popping smoke, but you're at least going to be able to get 1 hit, probably a wound, maybe not, but probably a wound, and probably finish that off. Again, bad rolls happen, right? So do be prepared for that. But you can be pretty sure that you can kill something like this fairly easily. Now, the other thing we can do is maybe we don't, maybe we pepper it with some scourges, burn a command point from this guy. We don't want to fully kill it, right? Now, you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't you want to fully kill it? Well, because specifically the Lehman Russ commander has shoot on death, right? Death befitting an officer. So we can actually eliminate this in close combat. If we had a squad right here, like a great place for the Venom, right, is just right here. It's a great hiding spot. Again, your opponent risks a lot by coming out here to draw line of sight to the Venom, right? Your opponent risks a lot by doing that. So we can put our Venom just like right here. We can get out, 3 inches the next turn, boom, move, kill the Lehman Russ battle tank, and then death befitting an officer is going to, obviously go off, but that squad would have already been dead anyway. So you're sacrificing maybe something that you didn't really care about too much. Also, death befitting an officer, it hits on 4s. So, there is that as well. There's another little trick you can do, by the way. Like, not if they're in this position, but if you have... This is going to be funny, but let's just say it's right here, right? Like, let's say the Lehman Russ battle tank is... God, it's going to be hard to get here. But it's right here on the, right by the edge of the wall. All right, it's right there on the edge of the wall, right? And it's not your typical 1.1 away. It's like really trying to hide from whatever we have over here. So you can actually come out, charge the wall, kill this thing, and if it can't see you, it can't shoot you, right? So you can't use death befitting an officer in that case. So, if you hide behind this wall, attack it, right on the wall here with Drazar and some Incubi or whatever, and you manage to kill it, you can actually, pretty much deny their ability to do that. But that's not most vehicles, right? Most vehicles do not shoot on death. So you don't have to worry about that in most cases, but it is something, that you can get around somehow. Boom. Okay. Also, if it's a Lehman Russ commander with a Demolisher cannon, the easy thing is just to be outside of 24 inches. So, If it's like right here, just barely towing the objective with this little last cannon, right? As long as you're 24 inches away from it, you're safe. Now, you're not 24 inches away here, right? That's not good. But for example, if you were way over here in this corner, ooh, yikes, maybe not. Maybe there's no place to hide, guys, in this particular situation. Yeah, unfortunately, that's a very good position for death befitting an officer. But if it was like here instead, perhaps like it's coming from this way, then you could like be back here and shoot it. All right. So there is some lines that you could actually get away from it. Just keep in mind that moves like that do have limitations. In that, if it's not an eligible target, it can't shoot you. Another thing that you might find interesting is, yes, they can shoot at your scourges or whatever, but they might not be able to shoot at your mandrakes because remember your mandrakes have 18-inch lone op. So if your mandrakes are 18 inches away somewhere else, like for example right over here where this Talos is, this vehicle would not be able to shoot them because lone op is still in effect. Okay, so basically this is going to be a very denial heavy list, right? It's not going to function like a very aggressive and fast Drukhari army. The Kabalite Cartel is very methodical. It wants to drain your opponent of resources over the course of a longer game. It's kind of like a Guardian Battle Host or a Seer Council style where you're playing a little bit more defensively. You're choosing units that are a little bit more defensive in nature but have a lot of punch when they need it. And that's kind of what we're going for here. The only difference is that, basically this detachment has a lot of bonus damage because of its contract ability. So unlike Seer Council, where you're really relying on the units themselves, in this list, the units themselves are already good, and then you're buffing them even further because you have sustained hits or lethal hits or precision or whatever it is, right? So you're able to really, really ramp up the damage quickly on your opponent. Oh, weirdly enough, Leman Russ commanders are also characters, so, not that it matters, but you could just choose the character, contract at some point and not the lethal hits contract, just in case you just need those points, right? I know the precision doesn't matter, but, if you have to get if you really have to get pain tokens and there's a Leman Russ battle tank there and you're like, you know what, I just have to get my pain tokens right now, like it's the only vehicle there, I don't want to be stuck with lethal hits, I'll just get rid of it, right? That could be something you could do to get quick pain tokens. Okay, so anyway, that is it. I think the main takeaways from this, because I was kind of rambling on there for a second, I'm not going to lie, is that you really have to use your mandrakes well to deny your opponent a lot of board space. You have to use this Talos right here in this particular list to put a wedge between your mandrakes and whatever else is going to come after them to protect them. The Venoms you can stage in areas like right behind walls and ruins to attack objectives and make sure your opponent is not scoring primary. And lastly, you can use units like your Scourge and your Ravagers to take things out from long range to make sure that, just in case there's some cheap crap on the objective. A lot of opponents like to put some crappy units on there. Ravagers are really good at taking those out. So are Scourges, like, just a crappy vehicle or, a crappy unit of infantry can easily be killed by these two things right here. And then, of course, we have our Cobs, and our Cobs are honestly just there to screen, right? Like, they're just there to screen your backfield. They're just there to provide sticky objectives. That's it. They're really there for nothing more. I mean, you might want to pop out a Dark Lance every now and again, shoot something, but that's about it. Okay, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I'm going to have some more videos out soon on different detachments. It's been like kind of a weird couple weeks for me because I'm in a different situation than I was before. So, I'm just trying to kind of produce content as much as I can. I'm also working on the Eldar Knights project as well. So been very busy. However, I am going to also, I know a lot of you haven't gotten a lot of regular Eldar content. I am going to have some Eldari content and list reviews. I'm going to put up a couple of my lists that I've been running at the local game store over the last like 3 or 4 weeks, pretty much nonstop, to give you kind of an update on what's going on with Eldar in my mind, and how the Eldar are doing. They seem to be doing very good. I've had some, honestly, great success in my own games that have been, just one-on-one with good amounts of terrain, that it's been a really good experience with the army. And I think we're in a really solid position with the Eldar. I really do. So thank you for continuing to watch, and thank you to all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last 3 years. You've really helped the channel grow, and you've helped to make it a lot better as well. So thank you. I do have a channel store page and an Amazon affiliate link if you guys want to support the channel further or join the channel Patreon. I will leave those links all in the description as well. If you do join the Patreon, you could join it for free, or you could support, but either way, you will get access to our channel Discord. So if you want to check that out, want to talk to me about strategies and tactics and hobbying and things like that, feel free to join. I'd be honored to have you aboard. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.